Happy New Year!
Happy New Year!
And welcome back to Cyburst, a podcast about science, popular culture, and entertainment. We're your hosts, Isabel
and Ella. We are two science communication and sci-fi nerds steering you on this spaceship of fun into the multiverse of science. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about science as music.
Yes, I think this might be about to be my second favorite episode to record.
Whoa. So we're talking all things data sonification, popular songs interacting with not only science themes, but also science education.
Yeah. And as always, we're going to start by jumping into some recommendations. But before we do that, it's really important that we acknowledge that this episode of Cyburst is being recorded on Ngunnawal Ngambri country. Indigenous Australians are the first scientists and artists, and we'd like to pay our respects to elders past, present, emerging, and future.
Nice. So let's jump into some recommendations for our culture snap. First one of the year.
Yeah.
Isabel, what are you recommending for people today?
Yeah, so this will still be coming out in summer.
Love Australian summer.
So I'd like to recommend some board games to play with family and friends to pass the time.
Really good time of year to play board games. You got everyone around you. Maybe you're on holidays still.
Yeah, exactly. At the coast.
So nice.
So the first one I wanted to recommend is Codenames,
Ooh.
which is a word association type game. You split into two teams and each team has a spy master who gives word clues, and then the teams have to find words that are associated with that word. So you can buy the board game or you can actually play it free online.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know that. I have
great.
played the board game and I highly recommend.
Oh, it's so much fun.
Maybe the online version as well too.
Yeah. The second one I want to recommend is Telephone.
Ooh, what's Telephone?
Which is like a mixture between writing and drawing. So like the first person will write a prompt, and then the next person will come in the room and draw it. And then the next person comes in and sees the drawing and then has to write what they think the prompt was based off the drawing. And that's really fun, to see how it evolves over time. So you
evolves into chaos.
Well, yeah. So you can also play that in person with just paper and pens or whiteboard markers, whatever. But you can also play it online using a platform called Gartic Phone.
I love me some Gartic Phone. And they do cool animations and things too.
Yeah, there's various different versions of it. So
love.
Yeah. What are you recommending, Ella?
I'm recommending one of my favorite things to do, particularly after Christmas. Maybe you've got a whole bunch of wrapping paper that's been used and is kind of unusable, but there's so much and maybe your recycling bin's already full. I love paper pulling and paper pressing, which is where you can, reduce, reuse, recycle your Christmas wrapping paper by kind of blending up paper and water and then using a decal and a frame, which essentially are two bits of wood, one with mesh, one without, to make your own paper. And it's homemade. You can customize it with
so much fun.
Pressed flowers. I've seen people cut out specifically Where's Wally shapes and put Wallies in paper made from Where's Wally wrapping paper.
Oh, that's such a great idea.
You can use, I did biodegradable glitter one Christmas. You can put seeds in it and make seed paper.
Oh my gosh.
I normally use it to make a whole bunch of homemade cards, and I stock up over summer because the paper dries really quickly because it's so hot.
Right. How long does it take, the process?
I normally do it for a good 4 hours, and I'll just go.
Yeah, you get in the zone though.
Well, once you started, you kind of got all the equipment there, and it's really good. And because I do this now, my family are kind of in the habit of, once we've unwrapped all these presents, like someone's birthday or for Christmas, afterwards we then go through methodically as a family and remove all the sticky tape from the wrapping paper so that I can use the paper afterwards and the sticky tape goes in the bin. So this is my recommendation for you. It's super, super easy, super chill, and a lot of fun, and helps the planet a little bit, which I love.
This might be something you will have to teach me when you come back from your trip.
Okay, let's do it. So today we're talking about science and music.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people might be wondering,
What?
why? Why are we bringing science? Why are we bringing music into the mix of science? Science is already so cool.
Yeah.
Pop culture ? So to kind of like give a little bit of an intro, music is everywhere.
Indeed.
Everywhere. It's in pretty much every single culture. It's something that I think humans all share.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really common human denominator.
Mm.
And because of this, it is therefore popular culture.
Yep.
Like it permeates throughout everything that we do, I'd
Yeah.
say. And it is both an emotion and something that can unite us even when we're away. I think it's super funny. We've just had Christmas, and Christmas is like,
Yeah.
you know, in December, you only listen to Christmas songs, and it's like 1 month of the year, but you have a specific array or library of music you only listen to in that period if you celebrate. But music is also, on its own, kind of away from that popular culture, embodiment. It is both an art and a science,
Yeah.
because music is creative, but it is also incredibly precise.
Yes. Yeah. And science and music have a really deep relationship and have a lot in common. So both use maths principles blended with creativity and inspiration to arrive at conclusions. And I read this quote somewhere, I don't know who it came from, but it sounded great, so I'm going to read it.
Hell yeah.
It was, maths is music for the intellect and music is the science of the heart.
Stop it. That's so cool. I love that.
Yeah, and it's based off the idea that music turns vibrations and frequencies. Hello, those sound like science terms.
Is that some jargon I hear?
Into patterns that elicit emotions. So it creates meaning, including creating meaning out of science concepts.
Wow. Should we jump into that?
Yeah.
How do we create meaning out of science concepts through music, Isabel?
Okay, and there are scientists who do this with their work. And let me talk about my favorite way that they do this.
Let's go.
Data sonification.
Woohoo! 3 cheers for data sonification.
So you may have heard the term before. It is basically the translation and representation of data as sound. So it's the auditory equivalent of data visualization.
I love data visualization. I think it's such a accessible way to look at complex information and make sense of it quickly. So I guess data sonification kind of does the same thing, but for your ears rather than your eyes, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Tapping into a whole new sense.
Ooh, we love senses.
So scientists use this both as a fun way to spot patterns in their research, as well as using it as a guide to discovery.
Ooh.
Yeah. And like I said there, it's based on the idea of we're underutilizing our auditory senses. In
general.
Yeah.
And in research.
Yeah, because it's like, well, we do a lot of writing and drawing.
And that's kind of it, unless you're doing like a live presentation.
Yeah, so they've found that doing this is a whole new way of
engaging with people.
Yeah, both engaging with people and finding new information about scientific concepts. And so some of these scientists actually turn their data into therapeutic songs.
Okay, what therapeutic songs?
Yeah, because it's very like relaxing to listen to.
Which kind of sounds like the antithesis of science, right? Like I wouldn't say people think listening to someone talk about a scientific project is relaxing, but I guess in this translation it might be.
And then some of them believe that in the future we'll be able to reverse engineer the sounds to make new materials.
That's so interesting.
Yeah,
I
so
can't even begin to
comprehend.
understand that.
I don't know how that would work.
But I'd love to see it happen.
Yeah, me too. So I want to talk about a couple of examples.
Please do.
Let's start with one in Australia.
Yes.
Because we are based in Australia.
Southern Hemisphere babes.
So there are some scientists who are converting DNA sequences and particle vibrations into notes.
It's like musical notes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because the visual readouts of DNA can be a lot of information and overwhelming. And so using sound makes it easier to pick up on patterns.
This makes sense because there are so many like base pair sequences in DNA to like go through. So I guess it's a lot.
Looks a bit crazy when you like read it on a...
Yeah, it just looks like someone has dropped a whole bunch of letters over the page.
Yeah, so this helps scientists recognize unseen patterns, mutations, and irregularities in DNA. And how they do it is the 4 DNA bases, which are adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine. Mm-hmm. Or you might have heard it ACGT, because scientists love acronyms and jargons. It's the building blocks of all of us.
Yeah, the universal code, which is also redundant because all DNA does is code for proteins.
Yeah. So those building blocks eventually become proteins through translation. And what the scientists do is assign a unique musical note to each DNA base, which helps them hear when they appear in the sequence.
Okay. This is making sense. This is making sense for me.
Amazing. And I can't play it here for copyright reasons.
But we'll link it.
We'll link the
We'll link it. Go listen to it.
Yeah.
And enjoy the sound of, you know, the foundations of all life just being sung to you.
Yes. Yeah. Now let's talk about NASA. NASA has my favorite forms of data sonification.
Okay, tell me about them.
Where they translate data from both their telescopes and observatories into music.
Ooh.
So the first one I want to talk about is the bullet cluster image, which provided the first proof of dark matter
Ever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is that mysterious, unseen substance that makes up most of the universe.
You see, that sounds like science fiction, but I know it's true.
But it's true.
Yeah.
I know. And it breaks my brain thinking about it. But yeah, so they took this image and sonified it. And the way I'm about to explain it sounds a bit dry. So you again have to go listen to it because it's so like atmospheric and like exactly how you would imagine space to sound like.
That is such an interesting concept. Like, how do we imagine space to sound like?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's listening to this, that's certainly what I would imagine space to sound like.
I wonder how many clues it's taken from popular science films.
Like sci-fi music.
Yeah, because I think that's a whole genre in itself.
Oh my God.
Like, I think there's a certain expectation we have. We're like, oh, that's what space sounds like. Apart from, you know, the trailblazing 2001 A Space Odyssey where there's just silence.
Yeah. Oh.
Sorry, that's a tangent. Let's go back to this because this is still really cool.
Though. Yeah, so basically data showing dark matter in the image is represented by lower frequencies
of sound.
Yeah. And then X-rays are assigned to higher frequencies. And then the pitch is adjusted so that each object towards the top of the image produces higher tones as well. So you get this, see what I mean? This sounds really dry, but it's like beautiful when you listen to it.
We all have to go and listen to it.
Yeah.
After the episode, though. I mean, you could pause and come back.
Pause.
You can pause, but like, please come back. We'll miss you.
And the other example I wanted to give was the Crab Nebula image. So they also turned the data from that into sound. And here, each wavelength of light was paired with a different family of instruments. So, for example, X-rays, which are blue and white in the image, are brass instruments. So like trumpets, trombones, the optical light data, which is purple color in the image, are string instruments like violin.
Oh, I like
piano,
this. Yeah.
And the infrared data, which is pink in the image, are woodwinds.
That's
like
a really
flute.
fun way to categorize it. And yeah.
It's gorgeous.
Science is so cool and representations of data are so cool.
Yeah.
It doesn't just have to be a graph, you know?
Yeah, exactly, right? This is just a new way of conveying scientific information.
And showing patterns easily.
Yeah, so this is useful for scientists, but also for non-scientists.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really interesting way of outreach.
Absolutely it is. It is such a cool way and an unusual way, I think, that is really, really out there and really engaging to welcome people into science and scientific processes. And, you know, great science communication
Uses all senses.
uses all senses. And maybe we should actually talk about that for a second because, you know, listening and audio is part of one of the 5 senses that we can take in. And I always come back to this idea that I was told in year 12 in media class that when we're watching a film or a video, audio is 50% of the physical engagement we are exposed to. So what you're hearing is just as important as what you're seeing.
Whoa. Huh. I didn't actually know that, but that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And we also, like, you can further go into that. And I think that's why podcasts really work, is because if you're watching a video, say on YouTube, and the visual quality is really bad, but the audio quality is good, you'll probably keep watching it.
Yeah.
But as soon as audio quality gets bad, it's, you know, it's kind of unbearable. Like, I think we're so much more sensitive to audio being done well. And I think maybe that's why podcasts are so exciting right now, is because they engage a sense that you don't have to, you know, give all of your attention to, but also when done well, it really holds your attention. And I think, you know, like this, whether it's going to be a good experience for you or not.
Yeah. Oh, love. We talked a bit before this episode how like this episode idea is so meta.
Yeah.
Because we're like a podcast talking about audio essentially.
But you're hearing about audio audibly.
Yeah. It's amazing. I love it.
But let's go like a little bit further for a second. And this is getting like a little bit like bare bones, but like hearing or auditory perception is the ability, or our human ability, specifically in this instance, to perceive and receive sounds through an organ, aka the ear, which is, you know, a bodily organ. And we perceive sounds by hearing through detecting vibrations as periodic changes in the pressure of a surrounding medium. So that's like a lot of words, right? But essentially, our ears detect vibrations throughout time and within the space, within the air pressure that we're currently in. So within like the medium of the air pressure of this room right now, the vibrations that are bouncing off the walls and coming back at us is how we are perceiving sound.
Oh my gosh. Awesome.
And that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
This is as opposed to seeing, which is interpreting light and light carrying information into our eyes. So yeah, I think it's really cool to know that when we're talking about hearing and when we're talking about sonification going through and becoming vibrations, like vibrations are what we are detecting when we say we can hear things. So I think it's really cool to just kind of, you know, pair it back to what actually is hearing, why is it engaging.
And you know, when you hear like a deep drum sound, and that, would you say that's a combination of senses there then?
Yeah, we were talking about
full body vibration,
live music and full body vibrations, which then also takes in like, you know, your sensory touch information. Yeah, so when vibrations are big enough, it impacts the whole body too, which is really cool because the same cannot be said for, you know, taste or smell. Like, no matter how much smelling you're doing, you're never going to like see the smell, right? But if there's enough vibrations, you can feel it.
Right. Smell does have interesting connections with memories though. Yeah.
Let's not go there now, Isabel.
But that is, yeah. How
We'll come back to that idea later.
Yeah, we're just going to park that there. We'll come
We're
back.
just going to park it there. Don't worry. We'll come back. We've given the keys to the valet. One day we'll remember that we've left our car there. It is really meta talking about sound in this format. So we can't play any of the starter sonification stuff
No, it's so sad.
because of copyright reasons.
Yeah.
But Isabel, listeners, Isabel is literally the coolest person I've ever met because she has made her very own data sonification
I have.
for us to talk about and listen to today.
Yeah. So because I loved hearing like what NASA and biologists had created so much, was like, I wonder if I could do this myself with some of my own science experiments. So I went and found a platform called twotone.io, which does this for you. So if you listeners would also like to sonify your experimental data, you can
Go
head
for
over and
it.
do that. Yeah. So I tried a whole bunch of different ones, but the best two that I came up with, the first one is this sonified version of a pH curve from one of my titration experiments in high school.
And titration is where you're trying to balance these chemicals. It's the guy where you add too much dye and it turns pink and then you've ruined it forever, right?
Yeah, it's the really stressful method.
So you're like trying to add enough of one substance into your base and they're kind of normally liquids.
Yes. Oh no, other way around. It's
Other way
usually you're usually pouring a base into an acid to determine the concentration of the acid,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
because it's unknown. So you know the concentration of the base, but not the acid.
It's kind of like solving a mystery via chemistry.
Yeah, which is why I loved it.
Listeners, Isabel looks so happy right now. Like, you just really need to imagine the biggest grin on her face.
I did the titration competition in year 11 and 12. Did you do it too?
I think I did.
Yeah.
We did awfully at it. We added in way too much base and our acid went pink. Once you've gone so pink, you can't get anything back.
Shout out to my friend Danielle, who during the competition got 0% error rate.
Which is sensational.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my results and our other friends' results stuffed it up and made us come like last or something. But good job, Danielle.
Okay, so you took this pH curve.
Yes. Yeah. Plugged it in took the like data from the graph and chucked it in this tool and played around with it a bit, adding like different instruments and all that. And so you can hear the notes go gradually higher.
Ooh.
As I am slowly pouring more base solution into the acid. And at about 40 seconds in, the notes get quite high, and there's less instruments, so it's not as noisy as before. What you're hearing there is the equivalence point, which is the point at which the solution is neutral. So I've poured in enough base into the acid that it's no longer an acid.
Yes. Okay. Got it. And that sounds like. Does it sound like this? Are we gonna play it? Are we gonna put it in?
We're gonna play it.
Whoa.
How awesome is that?
So cool. I can't believe that's from your data.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Oh, and the other thing is, you probably heard at the end there, it sort of flattens out again, which is signaling it becoming a bass.
Wow.
Yeah.
Love, 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 love.
Yeah, and the second one I did was of a algae cell streaming in my first year of university, I think.
Yeah, we did that.
That biology course.
We were bench partners.
Yeah.
We
Do you
weren't
remember this experiment?
Yeah, we weren't like lab partners, but our lab partner groups were close enough to each other that we were shared data.
Yeah. So cell streaming, which is the process that helps move nutrients and genetic material around the cell.
You can literally kind of imagine like the cells as kind of like little rocks, and there's like streams of kind of water flowing around them. Like there's a lot of
that's what it looks like when you
like streaming is in like visually it kind of looks like a little stream.
Nigella algae are big enough that you can see it pretty well under a microscope,
which is why it's great for first year biology students.
Oh, it looks sick.
Yeah,
too.
It's really cool when you get the microscope focused. We had lots of problems with that, I remember.
That's every first year biology student's struggle, to be honest.
I think me and my lab partner also accidentally broke the glass slides we were using. Because if you bring your platform up too high, you can crack it.
Yeah, because you can like lower the microscope too much, right? That it like hits the glass.
Yeah, you sure can. Would hate to be the person who does that.
So anyway, I took some data on how the cell's width affects the rate of streaming, which the finding was that the lower the cell width, or essentially the smaller the cell, the faster the streaming process is.
Makes sense.
Which makes sense, right? Less surface area to cover.
Mm-hmm.
So at the beginning, you can hear a lot more going on with more sounds and instruments. And then as the cell width increases, it gets slower.
Should we hear it? Can we play it?
Let's play it.
Is that one your favorite, or do you prefer the titration one?
I think I like the titration one more. Well, I think the Nigella one sounds prettier, but I think the titration one you get more out of.
Which is really interesting. Like some forms of data will be better for data sonifications than other, right?
Yeah, so I think titration is an interesting example because, well, you and I have both done it, and it's actually a really difficult method to get it like exact. And so using sound is another way of picking up where the equivalence point could be, rather than just like visual.
Like it makes sense.
Yeah.
That's super interesting. And I feel like data sonification is kind of like science reaching into popular culture. So science really reaching into our world, seeing music and being like, that's really cool. How can we, make this make sense for science and, our research presentation and data understanding, which is awesome. But the flip side of this, and kind of the other half of our podcast and what we're going to transition to talking to, is where pop culture does the reverse.
Yeah.
And reaches into science for kind of subject matter on popular culture, specifically in music.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a quote from an article that I think is a really cool thing to touch on here. And it says, one approach toward making science, technology, engineering, and or mathematics, brackets STEM, approachable, desirable, and meaningful is to integrate or blend STEM into a context that is familiar and valued by audiences, such as fine arts, music, theatre, performance art, or design.
Yes, get it.
So
100% agree.
Music is already familiar and valued by audiences.
Mm-hmm.
Like we said before, it's so much a part of popular culture that we understand it so well. We might be more open to understanding or thinking about certain science concepts or elements or processes through a music vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to touch on, and this is immediately where my mind went when Isabel was like, oh, science, music, let's talk about data sonification. I was like, can we please talk about one of my favorite scientists, Australian scientists too, Dr. Drew Berry, who maybe isn't a name you know. I think he's rad as heck. He works at WeHi in Melbourne, and he is an in-house scientific animator.
Oh,
so
what a cool job title.
It's such a cool job title. And I've done tours of WeHi, Walter and Elizabeth Hall Institute with science groups, with high school. It's a really cool facility where active science is happening. And if you go into the ground foyer, like on the ground floor, they have a whole bunch of his animations playing in the foyer. And I got captivated. The reason that I'm touching on this is because he does lots of scientific animations, particularly of what's happening inside our bodies and inside cells. So processes,
oh my God, yeah,
we can't actually see happening. They are visual and are happening, but are really, really hard to wrap your head around.
Yes.
And he is so good at these that the pop culture icon that is Icelandic singer-songwriter Björk.
Oh my God, this blew my mind when Ella told me this.
Reached out to him and said, can you do some scientific animations for me to use as part of my music video?
How good.
How crazy that this, pop culture music icon was like, this Australian scientist who is animating what's happening inside cells. I want that. So in 2010, Björk requested, an animation of, it was called Bling DNA, and it was supposed to be kind of like a look inside Björk's own body. That was the concept for the music video.
Yeah.
But it's really cool because everyone's body kind of does the same things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it shows this process of the replosome, which is a really, really big protein that's quite complex, carrying out DNA replication. And this took 6 months to direct this DNA-themed video because it's really, really tricky. Like these are some of the only insights we have to the cells, into our cells and our bodies.
Like 6 months, that must be long in the terms of music video.
Yeah. I just think it's kind of more in the terms of like a scientific project.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right? It's like a research project. But I think the really cool thing about this is that it's going somewhere to someone with an audience who is, maybe more open to engaging with the topic, who wouldn't normally engage with it. And that's really cool from a science communication perspective.
Damn.
So sick. Highly recommend checking out Dr. Drew Berry's animations. You have probably seen them online. They get unfortunately like bootlegged quite a lot and used from like other people, but it's so funny the amount of it almost looks like just little guys like wobbling around your body, carrying big blobs and taking them places. Like it looks make believe, but
it looks like there's
so
like
cool
little people living inside you.
And I like to think there are little people living inside me, just helping me have a good time. So using that as a launching off point, something that Isabel and I were talking about is when you're learning science, especially at high school, they're still trying to, keep you engaged. We've still got this awful leaky pipeline that we're trying to, fix a little bit. So there are lots of novel approaches to getting people, to build additional knowledge through using familiar beats that were all recognizable.
Yeah. There are so many examples.
So many examples of this. Popular songs used for educational purposes. We're talking parodies. We're talking music parodies, specifically pretty much on YouTube. And they're so educational. They're so fun. One of my favorite ones that Isabel didn't think she'd seen, but we watched it yesterday. And actually, I think we've both seen it in a few different places over the internet.
Yeah.
Is ASAP Science's Dua Lipa parody, which is a lab safety song. So it's Dua Lipa's New Rules, but now it's lab rules. And it's talking about, making sure you wear your goggles and like your safety coat.
It's so good. Like,
It's so good.
everything about it, the music video, the
They
delivery.
dance. They're in like rainbow lab coats.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know the stereotypical image is like a white lab coat, but really it doesn't have to be white.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so fun to watch that it makes me want to watch it again. And I think that's a really key part of this, is that music is repeatable in a way that maybe lesson plans aren't.
Yes.
Like, you can just keep engaging with it, and the music itself, content won't change, but your understanding and your engagement and how much space it takes up within your mind will change.
Yeah.
A really interesting part of this is that there was an assignment at UCLA in their Institute of Environment and Sustainability for an exercise of science communication.
Oh, this makes me so happy.
It's so cool for each of these university students to create a music video parody, to explain a part of their science, most of which themed around environment and sustainability. So, pulling plastic out the ocean or similar things.
I was going to say, I think this is something we have to recommend to Anna Sophie for her science and humour course.
Yeah, and they did it for years, and they actually had quite a few videos. I hate to use the term go viral, but, get really popular online and make a little bit of an impact, which is really awesome to see. And time again, there are like so many examples of this. Another one we listened to yesterday was this Canberra artist, so really local to us, which is super cool, responding during COVID to turning back to science and trusting again in science.
Yeah.
And it's like a parody of The Sound of Silence called The Sound of Science. And it's, a comfortable and creative medium. And this is just on an ABC radio, and it's still up, and you can go listen to it. And I think it really represents a space and time. But it's so cool. And I think people just engaging with science, or maybe welcoming maybe the scientific theory and process back into their hearts in a positive way through music is so exciting.
Yeah. What's really interesting too, the people creating these are usually scientists themselves, like making these parodies, or like, work as lab technicians or whatever. And that just shows, again, science and art aren't mutually exclusive. Just because
they never have been.
No, they never have them. So just because you're good at science doesn't mean that you can't also be good at art and music.
Yeah, I think it's an absolute myth that they should be separated, and I think that's poo, and I don't accept it. To be honest with you, I don't accept it. Science is art is science. The world is one big, beautiful mess of understanding and engaging with each other. Talking about kind of how prolific science, music, video parodies are, I found this paper on like in science communication on music video parodies in science.
Hell yeah.
That talks about how it's so prolific that even commercial suppliers of, like science equipment and lab equipment have started to use music videos to advertise their own products.
Oh, that's so good. But it's way more entertaining.
Yeah. I also think, and I've watched like a lot of ABC Gruen growing up. And I think it's a really big marketing point specifically for Australians is that humour.
Oh, yeah. We love humour.
Will tickle us in a way that brings positivity and to this brand association in a way that we never would before. And I think it therefore is only logical to assume that it can do the same for science if it can do that for brand recognition.
Yeah.
The paper concluded really that in how prolific and how popular science music parody videos are, is that science communication should really be looking beyond obvious roots of SciComm, so beyond beyond writing, presentations, etc., to kind of like these more engaging and exciting things, which I think is awesome as a conclusion to come to, and I really hope cool things come from it.
That is amazing. There's lots of really interesting research happening in this space at the moment, isn't there?
Yeah.
In both like science communication and elsewhere.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the science-themed music I grew up with in high school.
Please tell me about this. I would love to know.
Because I still have these songs stuck in my head. So
sometimes all it takes is one line and you're like, here we go. And that's something music can do that I think like papers can't.
Yeah. So you might have heard the periodic table songs before on YouTube. In particular, the ASAP Science.
Love ASAP
one,
Science.
which is based off the famous Can piece, which is like there's hydrogen, then helium, then lithium, beryllium, and it just keeps going.
And you know all the nerds in high school had it memorized, and man, I wish I could have been one of them.
Yeah, some people totally memorized it, but I think it's a very memorable. Yes, that's
memorable tune, song.
Yeah. And then there's another one which is starting in 1967 actually, and you can find it on YouTube. Tom Lehrer, based off a Gilbert and Sullivan tune. It's a similar thing to the ASAP Science one.
Yeah, I think because people know that musical tunes will help them memorize better, so why not utilize it, right?
Yeah. So that was one that was played to me multiple times in chemistry class to like learn the elements and the order of them in the table. And then there was a whole bunch of maths ones as well.
I feel like half people in primary school had like the Learn Your Multiplication Tables CDs.
Oh, those as well.
But they were all slightly different, which I found really funny.
Yeah, they are. Whatever works. So it's still music. So there was one teaching about like how to use negatives in maths. 'Cause you know, there are all these rules about it. Yeah. My favorite one, which is the BODMAS song, which is like, BODMAS, you do the brackets first.
Oh, I can get into that. That sounds so fun.
Order comes after that. I could keep going, Ella.
Please do. My one that these reminded me of is in biology class. And my year 12 biology teacher played this for me, maybe even year 10. And they were like, this is going to be stuck in your head for forever. And I was like, haha, no, it won't. Literally still is. What is it? Like 6 years later. It's a photosynthesis song. And photosynthesis is, you know, something that we're like, oh yeah, plants eat sunlight, blah, blah, blah. But like the chemical processes behind it are generally tricky and complex to understand. And this song goes through this. But that's not the bit that's stuck in my head. It's the chorus of, every plant can do this fundamental process, and we can call this photosynthesis. Just anytime someone says photosynthesis, it plays in my head. And the point I wanted to touch on there is that songs are really great for getting big ideas stuck in your head, even if the nuances slip through. It's a really good reference point for you to come back to and say, I know photosynthesis is a fundamental process and every plant can do it. What else? What is the Krebs cycle?
Yeah. Wow. It's sort of like that thing in biology where they get you to repeat like mitochondria. Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
Like you say it enough times and you believe it if you don't know what happens, but you can always jump back into it. Another one that was popular in my high school was, you know, the Big Bang Theory was coming out. It was kind of like, you know, the show that had scientists in it. I have interesting opinions on Big Bang Theory. I highly recommend Pop Culture Detective's video essays on the adorable misogyny of Big Bang Theory. But the theme tune for that was reused by people in my high school when doing science presentations, because for them, that association was so clear.
Oh, that's awesome.
That the theme was supposed to be associated with the science. So therefore, if they were doing a science presentation, they would use the theme and do like a PowerPoint to that theme song or like a video to that theme song. So I think, again, it's kind of like all about making like those connections.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've got some interesting points about kind of like the songs that are really like catchy and fun and get stuck in your head.
Yeah, they're just like obviously we still remember those songs that were played to us.
Like it was yesterday.
And that's because repetition helps memory consolidation. And music lyrics are a sort of more fun way of doing that than just like reciting sentences over and over again. Which is, why you, when you listen to a song so many times, you can so easily remember the lyrics. And there's also the like storytelling element to
that just, make it more sticky in your head.
Yeah. And so the psychology explanation behind it is because if you repeat something enough times, it transfers from your short term to your long term memory. Yeah. And so because emotions enhance memory processes as well, and music evokes strong emotions.
Sure does.
Music can be involved in forming memories, either about bits and pieces of music or about episodes and information, like science information associated with particular music. Just so awesome.
Yeah, memory is awesome. Music is awesome. And really, music is specifically awesome and fantastic for science and for science communication purposes, which is so cool. I love coming back down to science communication and like conclusions of just science topics. All roads lead to science communication.
In our worlds, it does.
In our worlds, at least. Let's jump back into our individual sections.
Oh, yes. Welcome back to Ideas with Isabel.
Isabel, please tell me your ideas.
So this episode, I'm actually going to be doing a little bit of debunking.
Gasp.
And this might let some people down, but it's fine. It's okay. You may have heard of something called the Mozart effect. Have you heard of this, Ella?
I have, actually. Yeah.
So it's a belief that listening to Mozart or even any classical music boosts your IQ and makes you more intelligent.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds believable.
Yeah. So the idea is based off a very small study from the early 90s that found that listening to Mozart temporarily, meaning 15 minutes, so very temporarily.
That's not even that's like a quarter of this episode.
Yeah.
And we'll make you smarter than that, I promise.
Boosted spatial reasoning. So that's,
sorry.
yes.
What?
So that's things like folding paper or solving mazes.
Okay, that doesn't really make sense until like Mozart makes you smart.
Yeah, so what happened was the media took that and was like, let's exaggerate this. And we're going to say, lol, Mozart makes you smart as a headline. And then, of course, this created a fad where parents started buying lots and lots of classical music to play to their babies and their young children because they were like, this is going to make my kids super intelligent.
Okay. No.
Yeah, so this has since been debunked.
Good.
Plenty of people still believe it, though.
I think I still hear it being thrown around a lot.
Yeah, and I am sorry if I just disappointed you with telling you that it's not true.
Freedom in information. So Mozart does not make you smarter.
No, unfortunately. And I'm pretty sure they debunked it even like increasing your spatial reasoning as well since like the original authors. Yeah. And back to it because it was a very small study, like
sample size of 7.
Not that small, but like probably under 50.
Yeah. How disappointing. Let's talk about something that I never find disappointing.
Yeah, come on, uplift us,
which
Ella.
is X-Men First Class.
Okay, here we go.
I have been waiting, and I know it's only episode 6, but I have been waiting for a moment to talk about Rage and Serenity.
Mm-hmm.
So X-Men First Class, one of my favorite movies ever, has probably my favorite musical score and soundtrack to it. It's composed by Henry Jackman.
Okay.
I love this so much. I have it on vinyl.
Oh, really?
This song specifically is my favorite. It's called Rage and Serenity. It appears in a really, really emotionally important, powerful, and climactic scene about halfway through the film. It is the most stunning piece of music ever. The amount of times this appears on my Spotify Wrapped, like, I love this piece. I love writing to this piece. I was talking to a friend about X-Men First Class like a few years ago, and they're like, bet you can't find the scene with Rage and Serenity. I literally clicked and like found the bit in the movie where it appears. Like it's so, like, one click. It was so important to me.
That's how much Ella has watched this movie.
It's a fair few times. It has gotten to the point where I can listen to the soundtrack for X-Men First Class and I can like re-experience some of the scenes. Like, music is that emotive and that powerful.
It's bringing back memories.
That it's bringing back memories, which is super fun and meta because that's almost what's happening in this scene too. Like, not through music, but through telepathy, our favorite genuine scientific thing that can definitely happen and it is not fictional.
This sounds like you're trying to manifest it here.
Okay, shout out to episode 5. Rage and Serenity, favorite piece of music ever. So happy to get to talk about music in this podcast. And I just like to take a moment to appreciate that piece of music. But also to, maybe poke us all a little bit and say, like, what's your favorite, non-singing, so like really like orchestral, like score, soundtrack piece of, music in movies that makes you think of a scene? And would that scene be the same without the music? And I would argue in this case, especially 100% no. Like, any other piece of music would not do this scene justice, in my opinion. And I just think about how precise and how carefully curated movie soundtracks are, because it is half of what you're experiencing in the terms of like senses when watching that scene.
Absolutely. Yeah. What is it that you like so much about the music piece?
Probably the way that it builds. It builds, and then after the really loud climax, it's then got this kind of like waning off that though it gets quieter, it still keeps the power. And it just feels like catharsis. Like, it's about finding that perfect point between Rage and Serenity, which is like a perfect focus point, and you're supposed to like, think of a really happy memory, and it's really evocative, and it's so stunning. And the piece starts so quietly too.
Wow.
Shout out to Rage and Serenity. Thank you.
That was great, Ella.
I love it so much.
Oh, thank you for that.
Oh, you look so happy. I'm going to play it for you after this. Everyone go and play Rage and Serenity by Henry Jackman and thank him for his kind work. But questions for our fans, questions for our listeners.
Yes.
What other ways have you seen science represented in and through music?
Yeah. Has science in and as music helped you remember science concepts? And does it maybe make you feel more aware of and connected to science?
Yeah, I'm particularly interested to know if, like, in listening to this and thinking of this, even if you're not, a science person by choice, like maybe you stopped doing it as soon as you could in school, like whether those memories are still there and if they're positive or not. Because like some of these songs can be kind of annoying when they get stuck in your head, but I think overall for me they're still positive. So I'd love to know what you think about it. And as always, friends, stay nerdy, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Thank you to ANU CPAS for their support and access to their podcast studio.